to some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
This is my boomstick. Here's Johnny.
I have to return some videotapes.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Hello and welcome to a burning episode of All Things Horror. I'm your host Ben and I'm joined here with my co-host Matt. If you're new to the show, each week we choose a movie to break down and review. We give it our honest opinions and rate it from 1 to 10. We have a brief spoiler-free chat about the movie before heading into the plot and discussing our favourite and least favourite parts of the film. If you stick around until the end, we'll finish off with some interesting trivia and a fun little horror game created by myself. This week we are discussing The Burning from 1981. It's about a summer camp where some kids pull a prank on the caretaker called Cropsy. But the joke goes quite wrong when the teenagers accidentally set him on fire. And then years later, a burned and disfigured Cropsy returns to take his revenge. Directed by Tony Maylam. The main cast is Brian Matthews, Leah, Ayres and Brian Backer with a runtime of an hour and a half. Good runtime. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you, I don't think I've asked you, have you actually seen this before? I know we've spoken about it a few times.
Yeah, I've seen it before. It didn't like jump out at me at the time. I think I possibly appreciated it more this time. I'd seen it before. I knew the kind of story behind it as well, the kind of how it was made. I'm sure I might have even watched the documentary on the making of it because it's quite an interesting cast and it's quite an interesting behind the camera group of people. There's a documentary about the real Cropsy as well,
right?
Which I haven't seen, but it's available everywhere, like all on the free stuff. So yeah, I have seen it. I think maybe I'd watched the documentary about Tom Savini, and there was a lot of talk in it about that. So yeah, this is one that you have got like a bit of like almost like a family history with, isn't it?
Family history? I don't know, is it?
Yeah, wasn't this one your dad had on VHS, or am I?
I'm sure he probably did. I only actually discovered this. Well, yeah, I mean, it was from my dad probably about 10 years ago.
Right.
I hadn't heard of it. You know, I must have been talking to him about Friday the 13th. And he was like, oh, well, if you like that, you need to check out The Burning. And then, obviously, he got that out and we watched it. But, yeah, I mean, this one does tend to slip past a lot of people. I mean, when you think of 80s camp slashers, you do tend to go to Friday the 13th or Sleepaway Camp. So, I don't know. Is this I guess it's a cult film. Not many people didn't do immediately well when it came out, or?
I think it's a funny one because you've got Oscar-winning actors in it, and you've got like very famous people. Like, so it's an idea initially by Harvey Weinstein of all people. So like that makes it a bit of a strange one because like if he hadn't have had success with this, would we have had the monster, the real life monster that was Harvey Weinstein? So it's a bit weird.
Yeah.
And he's written like. The written up by his brother as well, and like I think their mum has something to do with it too. So it's like a real like beginning of their careers. But then you've got like Tom Savini, you've got Holly Hunter. Like Holly Hunter's never done another straight up horror film ever since, and she's barely in this film. But you've got like Fisher Stevens and like who's obviously probably more known for Short Circuit, and Jason Alexander from Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Like he's just naturally funny, and that's why I think there's some strange. It's similar to Sleepaway Camp in the sense that there's quite a lot of humor. But they're like maybe, and they capture that mean humor where they pick on the weaker member. So instead of Angela, you've got like Brian Backer's character Alfred, who gets kind of picked on. But even the bully in this is like Glazer is an absolute, like, Jason Alexander makes fun of him all the way through it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like it's just the way he talks and the way he acts. He's like, oh, like he's just a bit of he's like out of a spoof of these kind of films. He's like from Wet Hot American Summer. It reminded me of a character out of that. So even like the bully is like laughable, and like Jason Alexander never shuts up in the entire film. He does eventually, but like he's always got something to say, hasn't he? In the whole thing, he's like constant commentary on what's going on.
It's funny because like this is like the first film for a lot of these people, like Jason Alexander and Holly Hunter. And it's funny because Holly Hunter, I was trying to figure out which one she was, because obviously you know what she looks like now, but obviously she was really young back then. I was trying to figure out which one she was. Jason Alexander, you know exactly who he is as soon as you see him.
Yeah,
he looks
it's
exactly
just
the
same
but with
person
more hair.
as a teenage. Yeah, just more hair. Just literally looks like he's got, like, George Costanza's put a wig on.
Yeah,
and it's like it's really funny. And he's just the same delivery and the same comedic genius. He's just such a. I'm sure that wasn't scripted. I'm sure most of the stuff he says isn't scripted. I just get the impression he's just working around the lines that are given. And Brian Backer's an interesting one because he stopped being an actor, but he was in like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and he was in Police Academy 4. He was one of the cool skating dudes with him and David Spade were the two cool skating dudes in Police Academy 4. Arnie and Kyle, if I remember correctly. So like there's loads of, and obviously the big thing I think that makes this stand out, there's two things for me, is Tom Savini, and the other thing is Rick Wakeman doing the music, who's known for being in Yes and owner of a Lonely Heart and all that kind of stuff, and the soundtrack is really, really good. I did own the soundtrack to this at one point, but it was just too good a deal to sell it on eBay. But it's really, really good. And obviously you've got an English director who's famous for making music videos, so it's shot really well.
About him. I think he's known for a lot of documentaries as well, and I don't really know anything about it. I tried looking into like his movies, but he hasn't really got an awful lot to go by. Like directorials.
Yeah, it's mainly like promos from the sort of early days of MTV and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's a really there's some great people involved in it.
Yeah. I was looking at the like the budget and the box office, and like it didn't do well when it came out, but I think it was like a limited space. Like it only went to like 100 and something theaters, so like I didn't get a wide release, I think is what you say. But I'm willing to put money on the fact that, I mean, it might just be me, that Friday the 13th might have took some of the limelight from that. A lot of people say that this film is like a kind of a copycat. I personally would disagree. I think there's enough in it to make it its own independent film. I don't think it would have been possible for them to copy it in such a short amount of time, because it's like exactly 1 year. I think it's like to the day. Like,
and I think
between the two films,
they finished it before that had been on. So I think you're right. And like Savini chose it because he thought it made more sense than Friday the 13th Part 2, because he was like, well, why is Jason suddenly grown up? Like it doesn't make sense. Whereas in this, it's from like an urban legend from people who are from around that area. So like it made more sense to him, so he could kind of commit himself to making like grotesque ways of killing these people who are quite grounded and real. Like I don't think it's as realistic as the camp experience as Sleepaway Camp, just because of the age of everyone. For example, like the two camp counselors, obviously there's never any adult supervision in these places, but the the Glazer character is older than the two characters who are supposed to be looking after him. Like the actor was older than them.
Oh, really?
I think he was like 7 or 8 years older than him, something like that. So, like, it doesn't come across as real, but it comes across more real than Friday the 13th.
Yeah. Well, plus Friday the 13th has that kind of like, well, I don't know if it does in part 2, but like the kind of the supernatural, superhuman aspect to Jason, where like he can't die, whereas Cropsey in this, like, he is just a man that's just like severely burnt and he's out for revenge. So yeah, I mean, I'm with Tom Savini.
You don't see a lot of him either.
No, not really. I mean, have we spoke about Tom Savini before? Have we done any of films by him?
Yeah,
yet?
I think we talked about him quite a bit, and when we did the Friday the 13th stuff, and
oh, of course,
yeah, and maybe some other things that he's done as well. We maybe talked about just like, I feel like in a way, I mean, he's fantastic, but I feel like, sorry, I just yawned there. That was ridiculous. I'm fed up of talking about him. No, I feel like in a way that he's possibly the special effects artist that is discussed the most. That might be because he's written a lot of books and done documentaries and has got quite an interesting like Vietnam backstory and things like that. Rather than some of the ones that we've talked about, like Rick Baker and things like that, maybe people don't know, but people automatically go to Tom Savini, don't they? But he is the kind of king of the slasher special effects.
Yeah, I love Tom Savini. Plus he does a little bit of acting as well. Some of the films he's involved in, not this one.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think there is some like little things where he was involved in it on screen, but you didn't really know it's him. I love his practical effect. I think like I love all of his work, and something that I found quite interesting in the credits, it wasn't using like the normal special effects by Tom Savini. Like, it said something different. It was like horror sequences designed by Tom Savini. So I'm not sure if that means he had kind of like more flexibility in the effects that were achieved. Maybe something that would have been more towards a director, like they gave him more leeway to like stretch his legs, I don't know. Like
I think
horror
maybe
sequences
that's
designed.
why he chose to do this.
Yeah, I thought that was quite interesting.
Because in the sort of like, obviously he did some directing as well, and he did his own version of Night of the Living Dead.
Right.
So like, he's clearly got lots of his own ideas about how films, how films are going to be made or how they should be made. He's got an understanding of the whole process. He's not just kind of interested in making. But having said that, quite a lot of creative people come from makeup and special effects and practical effects. Like, look, when we did The Fly 2, John Carl Buechler, who went on to direct films after doing special effects and puppets and things like that. So I guess it's just kind of a natural progression for some people, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I was going to mention, I know you've already really kind of mentioned it already, but about Harvey and Bob Weinstein, like, because they're obviously, they own Miramax, right? They're the producers of...
Well, not anymore, but yeah.
Oh, yeah,
there isn't a Miramax, I don't think, anymore, but yeah, they were when they were absolutely dominant in Hollywood.
Yeah. But I think this was the film that kind of launched that. Am I right?
Yeah, it did. And I think, like I said before, I think it's something to do with their mum helping with it, and like hearing the local legend of Cropsey. And I don't know if they appear in the documentary, because the documentary was made years enough ago where maybe before people found out what was going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's another name that pops up a lot who I know nothing about, but I do like the name. One of the producers and has a lot to do with it is a guy called Corky Burger.
Corky Burger?
Yeah, which I just think is a great name.
That is a good name.
Yeah, but like getting Rick Wakeman is a big thing as well. Apparently he had the option of a small stake in the film or getting a one-off lump sum of money.
And
he chose the lump sum.
Oh, really?
But then it went to Japan, and the film made quite a lot of money in Japan, and he would have made more.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah,
sometimes people will do that, like Jack Nicholson with Batman. Like, was it like 1%?
Yeah.
And like, it's unbelievably good choice.
Yeah, I think we spoke about one recently that was something like that. You either take a percentage or a lump sum payment or something. Yeah. I don't know.
If they asked me before the film, I wouldn't know. But if you ask them, like, you have to make these negotiations before, I guess. But if it was after the film, you'd have a rough idea if it was a good film or not. But then even people say, who are in films, they're not sure if the film was good until they see it at the cinema. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, Tom Savini had some faith in it if he chose this over Friday Part 2.
Yeah, that's true. It's just like, I can't. It doesn't make sense to me, Friday the 13th Part 2. And actually, like, when we watched Friday the 13th Part 2, I think we were both surprised by how good it was.
Yeah.
Like how important it was to the series, and some of the characters were like better written than any of the other ones.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's kind of like its own separate film, I think.
Yeah.
It's so well, yeah, kind of. It's so far different from the first. It's almost like its own movie.
Yeah, and like obviously Tom Savini was just like, nope.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, that's already all I've got for pre-spoilers. I don't really want to give too much away. The budget was 1.5 mil and it made a box office of 700k, so took a loss on it. Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes have given it a 77%. IMDb is 6.3 out of 10. And that's all I've really got. Unless you got anything else before we head into the plot.
No, I was just wondering about if you had any thoughts on the name Cropsey. Like, obviously, it's just kind of a nickname or a name or a surname or something for the guy who gets bullied at the beginning. But like it makes me think of like cropping something, you know, like with shears. Obviously, he does, but like, I don't know. I feel like there's something in the name Cropsey.
You think there's something to it? Does it ever explain his name? I don't think it does.
I don't think it does.
Is that his actual name or a nickname?
Maybe the documentary. I don't know. Maybe in where did they get the name from? Whoever was telling the story. So it was 2009, the documentary. Cropsey, a boogeyman-like figure from New York, urban legend. But they're based on a real person called Andre Rand. But that was then blamed on Cropsey. Like, he was a real person who did bad stuff, but the people blamed it on Cropsey. Which is a bit insane.
Okay.
So I don't know. And my answer is I don't know. I know it won lots of awards. The film Madman was also based on Cropsey. I don't know if you've ever seen Madman.
No.
So yeah, that's another one that's from I think 81 or 82. But there's quite a few films called Madman, so it's seen as a good. Like, a lot of people talk about it as a good slasher. I've seen it, but I do confuse it in my head with the other Madman. There's another. So, yeah, it's a bit confusing.
I mean, I've got this on Blu-ray. Look.
Ooh, I watched it on YouTube.
Is it on YouTube? Is it?
Yeah, it's free
What,
on
for
YouTube.
free? Oh wow!
Yeah.
Oh god!
No expense spared. No expense spent.
I'm always shocked at the quality when I watch the Blu-ray, because I remember when I first saw it, it was so like grainy and dark, and now
it is. Yeah, it must be a good copy of it on YouTube as well. Because I thought how clear and good it looked, and it's probably someone's just ripped a Blu-ray and put it straight up on YouTube.
Yeah. Then again, to be fair, a lot of this is in daylight, which is quite unusual for a slasher. A lot of slashers have done, at night in darkness, lights are off, kill the lights kind of thing. A lot of this is actually like outside, middle of the day, sun's out. So yeah.
Sun's out, guns out, and I also don't think that the director was scared of like he wasn't taking shortcuts. He was clearly somebody very confident in lighting and things like that, which you need to be if you're making music videos. Everything has to be quite precise, doesn't it?
True.
So it makes sense. I just think it looked really good, and the surrounding areas look good. If you look at it, how Sleepaway Camp looks, like it looks a bit more drab, but then that's probably more realistic. I'd imagine that. I don't know I've never been to an American summer camp, but I'm sure there are times where it's miserable and wet and rainy and horrible and muddy. It's never just like bright sunshine all the time. Can't be.
How good's your memory? What year was Sleepaway Camp?
84? I don't know. 84 maybe? Maybe before. Let me have a look.
I'm just trying to think how they were in order.
83.
Ah, right. So it's literally... Oh, okay. So Friday the 13th was 80, this was 81, and Sleepaway was 83.
Yeah, so I mean, Sleepaway Camp's definitely, like everything else that was around at the time, trying to cash in on Halloween and then like the sort of going to the next step after Friday the 13th. So, I think you're right from what I've heard and the timeline how it works. I don't think The Burning was like a rip off.
No,
it's just more of a coincidence that there's some similarities and the timing of it. Sometimes that will happen, won't it? Like there was 2 big asteroid movies that came out at the same time, 2 big Robin Hood movies that came out at the same time. Like sometimes these things just happen. They're being developed by separate people at separate times.
Yeah. All right, I am gonna hit that spoiler warning, and then we'll jump through this plot line.
Spoiler warning.
Alright, so this movie starts out in Camp Blackfoot. Some young campers prank the caretaker Cropsey by putting a skull with candles in the eyes next to his bed. The campers bang on the window, which frightens Cropsey, which causes him to accidentally knock it over and catch a light on his bed. But it sets his whole cabin on fire. But by the time Cropsey gets out of his cabin, he is completely engulfed in flames, where he stumbles down into the river. Despite his horrific injuries, Cropsey survives, and we see this 5 years later when he's released from hospital. Then after that we see a prostitute luring him into her apartment, where he stabs her with a pair of scissors in a fit of rage. He then grabs himself a pair of shears and then sets out for Camp Stonewater. I can't remember if it explains this. Again, this is like another similarity with Friday the 13th, but I can't remember if it explains, is Camp Blackfoot the same camp as Camp Stonewater? Because I know in Friday the 13th it was Camp Crystal Lake, and then they changed it to Camp Forest Green because of the bad reputation it got. I don't know if that was like the same thing.
I mean, they all seem to be around the New York, New Jersey sort of area, don't they? These I think Sleepaway Camp's New Jersey is. I don't know. Is Friday the 13th? Was that's the same? I think. Or then again, sometimes they make these obviously, and they're pretending to be other places. But I know, for instance, Sleepaway Camp, they didn't have the budget for that. They actually filmed it at a real camp.
Yeah, but is it supposed to be the same camp? They've just changed the name of it.
Oh, that's a good question.
Because I know that was the case in Friday the 13th. Because I think it was Camp Crystal Lake, and then it was getting a bad reputation, so they changed it to Camp Forest Green.
I see what you mean. Yeah, I don't know.
I can't remember if it explains it, but because obviously he's going back. I just don't know if he's going back to the same camp, where he's come from. But I don't know. Maybe another coincidence. Yeah, one of the strongest things about this movie is the practical effects, and obviously it's no surprise with Tom Savini on it. However, something that really lets it down in my eyes is the fire, how the fire gets started. Like, it's a good concept, but it's a tiny little candle that falls on his bed, and it just instantly, flames just go whoof straight.
Yeah, I thought it must be like, is it like an oil lamp or something? That was the only.
Well, I think it was because the kids bring this skull in, didn't they? And it had 2 candles in the eyes, and he just knocks it onto his bed. But I mean, there were petrol cans in his cabin, right next to his bed. So I don't know. maybe they could have like played with it a little bit better, seeing the kid like accidentally kick it over, and that's what caused it. But yeah,
It's a strange thing to have in your room.
yeah,
It's a bit odd.
yeah.
I know we're not quite there yet, but like they definitely have like a lot of bullying campers in this film, which seems to be quite a realistic thing for people who maybe didn't fit in to the certain physical things that you did on a summer camp. But we also have quite mean medical professionals. There's a porter that's coming up who's like, "Oh man, you've never seen a freak like this."
Oh yeah.
He's like really bad at his job. What a compassionate guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that is not a good doctor.
No, he's just like, "Oh man, you've got to see this."
You'll never be a doctor until you see something like this. He is a freak show. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know. It went on for a little bit as well, that bit.
Yeah.
Overall, the pacing was okay in this film, but it does have its moments. And that hospital scene, I think, was one of the moments for me. Like, it started off so well, like in the cabin where you see Cropsey get burnt, and then it kind of took a little bit of a dive, like with that hospital worker.
Yeah, and the part
picked,
with the prostitute, I didn't remember that being as sort of long as it was, or as early as it was. I was like, we could probably do without that whole thing, really.
Yeah, you didn't need it.
It doesn't really make a lot of sense.
No.
Because, like, why is he just like, "Oh, I'm hideous," and then he's like, "I'll just get some practice in on this one." This one.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, we then see everyone playing softball. And when a camper is searching for a lost ball in the woods, she narrowly avoids Cropsey. She didn't realise she ran off, and you see the shears. A lot of stuff is like from his point of view, innit? You get like Cropsey view.
Yeah, and before that, you get lots of like zooming in on bums.
Yeah. And that's when we see Alfred. Alfred gets caught watching Sally in the shower. And one of the counsellors, Michelle, she wants him kicked out, but another counsellor called Todd, he talks to him and learns the reason that he was watching her in the shower is because he got no friends.
That makes sense. And he's always like, "Oh, just give him a break, man. Just give him a break.
Yeah.
Like, just be cool. Just be cool." And she's like, "No, but he's done something really bad. Like he's murdered someone." And he's like, "Oh man, just come on, give him a break."
Yeah, he's just got no friends.
He's got no friends. This little creep. But it's weird, isn't it? Like, these two people seem to be the only people who work at this camp. There's not a massive amount of kids there, and it's obvious that these kids are all over the age of 18 because there's nudity and zooming in on bums that you don't get in, say, sleepaway camp.
Yeah.
So they're obviously well, like we say, that some of the children are older than the camp counsellors.
Obviously, Sally's boyfriend Glazer. He's not too happy with Alfred about the whole peeping Tom thing.
What do you think of Glazer?
Oh God, he's such a typical dickhead bully, isn't he?
He is, and he's just so obviously like really not very intelligent, and like he'll be really angry at someone 1 minute, and then like be sat talking to them and trying to communicate with them, have fun with them the next. It's so weird. He's like, he flips back and forth, and then like he'll lose his temper because he's a big dumb idiot, and he'll like somebody will make a joke at his expense, and he'll get angry and sort of like grab them.
Yeah,
it's just like a big dumb animal, really, isn't he?
A big dumb dummy.
He's a big dummy.
The campers then go on an overnight trip down the river, where Todd tells them the legend of Cropsey around the campfire. Then Karen and Eddie, they go skinny dipping, and he gets kind of rapey, so Karen leaves, and then Cropsey slashes her throat.
I feel like Eddie's not in it very much until that moment.
Not really, no.
Like, I was like, who's this guy? I thought it was the Woodstock when I first saw him in the thing. I was like, oh, it's Woodstock, and I was because it was Fisher Stevens, who's really thin, isn't he? He's thinner, and he's got like I think he's possibly Israeli background, so he's got like darker skin. But like this guy, what was he called? Billy? No, Jimmy.
What, Eddie?
Eddie.
Yeah,
Eddie. Sorry. Billy, Jimmy, Eddie. Eddie, I'm just like, where have you come from, and why are you like so over the top?
I know, yeah.
And there's still the guy's like, oh, give him a break. He might have killed her. Give him a break.
Yeah, I know. I said we wouldn't get too deep into it, and obviously, the knowledge of what went on behind the scenes of Harvey Weinstein and everything, but like. It seems to be a lot more sexual than most horrors, and by that I mean like the sex scenes and nude scenes feel very weird and cold, like wrong, like normal 80s, 80s horrors. You know, they have their sex scenes, but they're normally just horny teens and they do it, and that's that. But this one, I've noticed a lot more of like the women saying no, and then the guys kind of like pressuring him into them. Was that just me, or did you pick up on that?
Yeah, like putting his arm out to stop her moving away from him, and like pestering and like grinding into people, and
yeah, it's very very odd.
It is odd, and I think it's particularly like maybe it was just their personalities or whatever, like of the writers, but yeah, like you say, it doesn't feel as fun and harmless.
Yeah.
Like it feels a bit more
gross.
And kind of weird. So even like some of the stuff, some of the funny stuff, like, and obviously like Jason Alexander, like getting what's he called? Dave. He's Dave. He's like giving out rubber johnnies to everyone, like in a bag, in like a paper bag.
He's like the go-to guy.
Yeah, it reminded me of, I don't know if you ever remember Ricky Gervais's Extras, the one with Daniel Radcliffe in, where he keeps a condom in his pocket.
Okay.
And he gets it out, and he's like, oh, you've unraveled it, and he's like, always ready to go. And he's like stretching it, and it pings into somebody's face. And he's like, can I have my Johnny back? It reminded me of that. Like, what are we doing? Yeah. What's going on? And the guy's like, no, I want some lubricated ones. Jason Alexander's like, oh, you picky bastard.
Oh god,
it's so weird.
Oh god. Yeah. Oh, and the next scene as well is like the next morning, like when the canoes are missing. So they build a makeshift raft, and then some of them like sail down the river. They spot the canoe, so they paddle over to it, and then obviously like Cropsy's inside it, and he jumps out and like kills them all. Was that like the longest scene in horror history? Them paddling over to that canoe. It just felt like it took so long.
It's Jason Alexander's having to think of things to say just to keep it going all the way there. Yeah, it was weird.
It's like it was filmed in real time. I was like, oh, come on.
Well, when it reappears later on, they're all talking for ages and ages, going like, oh, you played a joke on us. And not just like they played a joke on us. Oh, no, it's not a joke. It's like, oh, they played a joke on us. No, wait and see. Yeah. Wait and see. They're going to be a joke. Oh, it's going to make us laugh in a minute. Keep waiting. Continue to wait. Keep waiting. Oh, okay, no. They're all dead. It's just really weird in that, like, some things maybe do go on a little bit longer, but you might say that that's what we need. It made me think a little bit of In a Violent Nature. I don't know if you've seen In a Violent Nature.
No.
So it's basically Friday the 13th, but like a first person Friday the 13th, and the Jason kind of, you're just following him around, and a lot of the film is walking. But which is fine. It works for me because it's like kind of nature gradually creeping up and surrounding people, and then just with no kind of, what's the word, no thought to it's just like they're not enjoying it, they're just killing machines, like that kind of feel. It reminded me a bit of that in this, where some of the scenes do go on a little bit longer, but you could maybe argue that that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Where are we? So, Glazer and Sally. They have sex, very quick sex, and when Glazer nips off to get some matches, Cropsey swoops in and he shoves his shears right into her chest. And when he returns, Cropsey then stabs him through the throat and picks him up and pins him to a tree. Alfred sees it all because he's peeping again. So
peeping Tom.
Peeping Alfred. He goes back and gets Todd, and then Todd gets knocked out by Cropsey. Meanwhile, Michelle finds the bodies on the makeshift raft and brings the remaining campers back to the camp. And when Todd regains consciousness, he chases after Cropsey where he's pinned Alfred against the wall with his shears, and then Todd discovers Cropsey armed with a flamethrower. And then we get a bit of a flashback to where he remembers being involved in the prank back before, like in the intro. Alfred stabs him with his own shears, but in true horror fashion, Cropsey reappears, and then Todd slams an axe right into his face, killing him. But to complete the job, they burn his body with the flamethrower. They finish him off.
Fair enough.
And then before the credits roll, we see another group of teenagers around a campfire retelling the story of Cropsey.
So what my big thing is, what do you think of the way Alfred runs away?
What do you mean? Oh, what?
When he's running, his little legs are going real fast, and his arms are like little pterodactyl arms, and he sticks his head forward, and he's like, and he runs really fast, but it just looks really strange. He's kind of a bit like, it's a bit of a weird reference for anybody who's not a football fan, but like the way Raheem Sterling runs.
That's another scene where I feel like it goes on for way too long. Like
he's running for a long time.
He's running for a long time, and it's like a solid couple of minutes of him just like carefully looking round corners.
I mean, who doesn't like that?
Yeah, it's just constantly just him just looking around the corner. Nope, quick, get to the next one. Look around that corner. Yeah.
He's quite funny as well. You know what, Alfred's character is like really pathetic, but like. When he gets pushed in the water, their way of like saving him is pretty much he saves himself, pulls himself out onto the thing. They tell him to lie down for some reason, and he's like, "Are you breathing? Are you breathing? Are you alive? Are you all alive?" And he's like, doesn't say anything, and then they sit him up, and then he coughs out some water, and they're like, "Oh, you're alive," and then they're like, "Oh, I know what we should do. We should shoot this guy with like a pop gun." But like Alfred's sort of stuff that happens to him is really weird. He can clearly swim.
Yeah. He
pulls himself out onto the side. He's also a pretty good runner, as we can see.
Yeah, very athletic.
And he's good at not being detected. Are we saying that Alfred's the only one who doesn't deserve to die in the film? Is that the thing? And Todd?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. Does anybody in the film? Well, I mean, there's the girl who slept with Glazer. Like, what does she see in him? So, like, she's out. Glazer is absolute dork.
Is there
idiot.
A good guy in this film?
Woodstock shoots shoots Glazer with a pop gun, so he's pretty good. Dave's a barrel of laughs.
Oh, Dave, yeah, he's the one.
Yeah. If we could choose someone to stay alive, it'd be Dave.
Yeah.
Or the rather large girl who pushes Glazer into the water, which is quite funny.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Yes." I don't know. I think you're probably right. Maybe there isn't anybody. Holly Hunter's character, because I can't remember her. She was called Sophie, but I don't remember anything about Sophie.
No. What did you make of the ending? I felt like the campfire bit at the end was a little bit unnecessary. I don't know if they really needed that.
The burning too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because they did say like he weren't found. I'm not sure if that was just like to make the camp story more scary, but I don't know. He looked pretty dead to me when they put the axe in his head.
It'd be one of those where you find out that they did make a Burning 2, but it just never got released. It's in somebody's like lockup somewhere, like with Grizzly and Grizzly 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like they didn't have enough money to finish it or something.
Yeah.
Because it feels like it's ridiculous that there isn't. I mean, obviously there's a documentary. I guess making it if it belongs to the Weinsteins is probably tricky. But I know that Kevin Smith has just bought back Dogma from the Weinsteins, so that he owns it. So I don't know whether people are just kind of, I don't know, they don't want to deal with them.
I was quite surprised about that, actually, because what's there, like 12 Friday the 13th and like 4 sleepaway camps, but only one burning.
Yeah, it's odd.
To me, that's my favourite.
Yeah, and it's like, obviously they made the documentary, and that got people more interested in the burning again.
I need to watch that.
It's weird because people will have it as like top 10, top 12, top 15 slashes of all time kind of thing.
Here's a question. Do you think that Cropsey set out for Todd all along? Because after we see his like little flashback thing, like, or was it just a happy coincidence that he's still at the camp and he's now a counsellor? Because I think like somehow he might have known, because if you notice, like everyone in this movie died by his shears, but at the end, like Cropsey all of a sudden had a flamethrower, and like it's almost like he was toying with him at the end for a bit, and so yeah, I don't know, like it's almost like he was getting his revenge on Todd for burning him alive, and now he's gonna burn him alive. Yeah,
like I'm surprised Todd makes. Yeah, like no one's rooting for Todd, are they?
No.
I mean, he might root for Alfred a bit, but then he's still a bit of a creep for just like looking at people in the shower.
Yeah.
But another thing I thought that was quite funny was that it's a British thing, some British humour in it. Is that like when you said about the shears, like Rick Wakeman called 2 of the songs "Sheer Terror," "Sheer Terror" and more, and "Sheer Terror," but spell SHEAR terror.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a bit. Just thought I'd mention that one.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know about the end. I'm not sure. It feels like it's setting up for a sequel that never came.
Yeah.
But we're looking at what people have said recently, and I think you touched on it before, that like Weinstein was a bad person even back then, doing stuff behind the scenes, even during this film.
Yeah.
So like, probably people are like, well, I'm not giving him money to make a sequel.
Yeah.
Or even like, we might not know that they just didn't want anything to do with him.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, there might be something written. There probably is a script somewhere, but yeah. Yeah,
there's got to be. If you were making The Burning 2, you'd have to find like a load of future Oscar winners and massive sitcom stars. like the casting would have to be amazing to be as good as the casting in this, because to be honest, I think the actors in this, there's probably quite a bit of improvising. They make it like better.
Yeah.
Like Jason Alexander and Woodstock and even Glazer. Like, I get the feeling that he's added a few things into there, because you wouldn't write down half the stuff that he says.
Oh, right. Let's go to our ratings. So, who wants to go first? Do you want to go first? What are you going to give it out of 10?
Okay, so I took off a point for Harvey Weinstein. Okay, so it was a double release in the UK with When a Stranger Calls to try and get some money for it, and I think it maybe even been classed as, some people who are very, very knowledgeable on video nasties will tell me, but I think at one point it was classed as a video nasty as well. You know, I like the fact it's based on an actual sort of, what do we call it? What would you call it? The sort of the background of it being a real person, or a real legend, like an urban legend, I suppose. It was edited by Freddy 2's Jack Shoulder, who I actually quite like. as a director, and I like the editing in this. I think it's really good. I like the cast, I like the soundtrack, and I like the kills, thanks to Tom Savini. So I'm giving it, a first time I've ever given this score out, 6.75.
6.75, okay. 6.7, let me write that down.
Just to mess up your system.
Yeah. And that's a minus point for Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
So it would have been 7.75. But that bastard.
Yeah, maybe half a point off for him. I don't think I'd have given it higher than 7.
All right.
So a quarter of a point because of Harvey Weinstein. That's what he gets.
Okay. So, yeah, this is literally one of my most favourite slashers ever. I think it's really, underrated. I would consider this actually being better than Friday the 13th. I think it's got a bit more going for it, comparing the both. I think it's got a better storyline. There's no, like I said earlier, no supernatural or superhuman element to it. The locations I really like. They're very good. Everything about this film, location-wise, I think it's really beautiful. Like the lakes and the rivers and, everything. It's the way they change environments. The characters actually have something about them. They're not just throwaway characters that are just there to make a good kill count. You actually do get to spend some time with individual characters.
Dave.
So yeah, looking back on what I scored Friday the 13th, I scored that one a 7.5. So I'm going to stick to my word, and I'm going to give this a slightly better one. So I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10 because I do really like this film.
Yeah, cool. I thought you would give it a good score. But I was kind of interested. That you spotted a lot of the things that I spotted about it that were a bit different in tone to some of the others that we've seen. But there's some the quality of the filmmaking makes it stand out, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Compared to some of them. There's obviously a better filmmaker than the people who made Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah,
is in terms of actually making a movie. More money, more time, more skilled people, better music, better effects.
And especially for 1981 as well. It doesn't feel like an 81 film.
No, and it's weird as well because obviously I say all that. Yeah, I prefer Sleepaway Camp. I think for the dialogue and the strangeness of it and the realism of it, maybe. Whereas in this, they are clearly older. Jason Alexander could be 30 in this film.
Yeah. Easy. Yeah. All right, cool.
That's fine. That's part of what makes it funny, though, as well.
Yeah. All right, let's do some trivia.
Trivia. Oh, yeah.
To be fair, I think we've already discussed all the trivia. Yeah, I've only really got down Tom Savini. He turned down Friday the 13th Part 2, which was also 1981, to work on this one. But I have got he wasn't particularly happy with Cropsey's burn makeup because he was only actually given 3 days to work on it, which is quite common with effects artists. I know practical effects artists, they're never really given that much time. I think who did we talk about? Rick Baker. I've seen a podcast of him talking about it, and he says it all the time. Every time he's on a film, it's never enough time. He always needs more time. So I feel for I feel for Tom Savini only having 3 days to do Cropsey's makeup, but I think he looks great.
Yeah, I think he said he wasn't too happy with it, but maybe he's a perfectionist.
Yeah.
The Cropsey arms look a little bit like lasagna, but everything else is okay.
Yeah. You said about the video nasties. This film was one of the first movies to land in the UK video nasties lists. specifically for the Raft Massacre.
Yeah, that'll be it. That'll be the moment. It's weird, isn't it? What we accept and what we don't. I think we've talked about this before with like violence and sex and like why certain things are more like frowned upon than others. At least somebody like Mary Whitehouse, when she was like coming down on all these things, at least she was like, I don't like either of those things. It's almost more hypocritical to be like, oh, we can have lots of nudity in this film. That's totally fine, but we won't have any violence. Or it's fine to have lots of violence. Probably even worse to be like, it's fine to have lots of violence and even sexual violence, but like we'll have no nudity.
Yeah.
Like that's possibly the weirdest take, because it's like saying it's more acceptable to kill someone than it is to make love to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I never understand stuff like that.
It's the more you dig into, it's weird, really, isn't it? And like, obviously, I think it's hard, isn't it? Because I don't know, like, it's easy to just be like, oh, there's censorship bad. And I do agree with that to a certain degree. Self-censorship is important, and being able to like kind of look at something and go, that's not for me, and have that choice is really important. But I don't know, like, sometimes the people who are telling you these things have got a good life experience and history and say it might not be a good idea to watch this thing, and they might be right. Like, but more often than not, the people don't have much of a life experience and don't really, and are not censoring it for the right reasons. Like, they're doing it for more like puritanical reasons or religious reasons, or because they think they should, or blah blah blah, political pressure. So I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting because I don't think this is a particularly shocking film. It has some weird, uncomfortable moments. Yeah.
The director, Tony Maylam, like, he said that there was much more footage of Cropsey, but he decided to cut back some of the coverage on the killer to keep Cropsey more frightening on screen.
Do you think that's a good choice?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I do too.
It's like when we were talking about, was it Slumber Party Massacre?
Yes. You thought it was on too much. Yeah,
one of my biggest beefs about that one was he was shown way too much, like straight from the get-go. Oh, that's his face, that's what he looks like, and he's popped up all the way through the film. Whereas this one, I like it because most of the film is through his eyes, so you don't really get to see him, and it's literally not until right at the very end where you actually see his face and how burnt and deformed he is.
What about Psycho? Like that, in the costume, in the mother costume, is very sparing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that was maybe to do with the constraints of the time and what you can and can't show.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting one. I don't know. Because I think you're right. I think like more Cropsey would be bad for this film.
Yeah, I think so. Right, so that's all I've got for some trivia. So if you're ready, let's jump into this week's game.
I want to play a game.
Okay, so this game, I'm going to name some locations in movies, and you got to try and figure out what it is. And I'm talking about the fictional locations that are actually in the movies, not like the actual filming locations.
Okay, right. So like, let's say I'll choose one. It'd probably be one of the questions now, but I'll say something like, like Sunnydale, like in Buffy. Like,
yeah, fictional, yeah. All right, number one. First one is 112 Ocean Avenue, New York.
112 Ocean Avenue, New York. Ocean Avenue, New York, a horror film.
Yeah, it's one we've done.
The Exorcist.
No, it was the Amityville Horror.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I won't know that one.
Okay, so an American research station in Antarctica.
That would be The Thing.
The Rocky Mountains of Colorado.
Grizzly? No. Rocky Mountains of Colorado. Oh, is it The Evil Dead? Oh man.
No, that was The Shining.
Oh, of course. I'm having a stinker.
Georgetown, Washington, D.C.
Georgetown, Washington, D.C. Pet Cemetery?
No, that one was The Exorcist.
Oh, damn. Of course it's in Washington. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
Georgetown.
All the ones that I've said for my other answers will now be the answers.
An isolated cabin in rural Tennessee.
Evil Dead.
Yeah.
I told you.
And the last one is University of Zurich, Institute of Medicine, Switzerland.
University of Medicine. Is it a cure for wellness?
I thought you'd get that. That was Reanimator.
Oh, damn, of course. It even says it on screen.
Yeah. Oh, so what's that? One.
No, two.
Two. Yeah, two.
1, 2. Yes, 2.
Yeah. Yeah, and there we are. So, to wrap up now, so next episode. Oh, yeah, we did the poll pick. The poll pick was for zombie movies, and it was between Dawn of the Dead, Resident Evil, and 28 Days Later. So in third place, it was Resident Evil with 23 votes. Dawn of the Dead came in at number 2 with 59, and 109 people went first place for 28 Days Later.
28 Days Later.
Yeah.
So that one.
Yeah, 28 Days Later. It's been a while since I've seen that one.
I haven't seen it for a long time.
But I think there's a new one coming out, isn't there? 28
Well,
years
that's it.
later.
Yeah, I kind of wanted this one. I think I said I wanted this one to win.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
I'll watch it. I'll have to try and find it for free somewhere.
I'm sure you probably can.
Yeah,
It's quite a easy, accessible film.
I'll find out.
Other than that, we got some shout outs. So we've been getting some comments on YouTube. So a big shout out to Raw E5D. He's letting us know that he's checking in from Indonesia.
Oh, wow.
And
Welcome.
Thomas French 3639, who liked the Sleepaway Camp episode. He basically said how he had like mixed feelings about it and how it's both a good and bad movie rolled into one, and how it's got great slasher. It's a great 80s slasher, but not amongst like the best of the best from that era, which I agree with.
I disagree
You
strongly.
You can take it up with Thomas.
No, it's fine. Hey, Thomas is entitled to his wrong opinion.
Oh,
No, I'm joking. No, that's fine. I can understand why people don't like it. I know quite a few people who don't like it.
yeah.
It's not as slick. It's not as slick and good looking as a lot of slashes that we've come to see over the years. So it's maybe not as easy to like. Just like me. I'm not slick and handsome as these characters from the Friday the 13th films. I'm more like little Jonathan Tiersten's character in in Sleepaway Camp, going like fuck you, and then getting beaten up.
Yeah, all right, cool. So unless you got anything else to add, I'll see us out.
Oh, that's good, man. It was always good to see Jason Alexander telling a few jokes.
Yep. Awesome. So if you've liked today's episode and want to hear more, then go ahead and give us a follow on wherever you're listening from. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, where you can vote on the monthly movie poll picks. That's all for today, so thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you in the next one, 28 days later.
Is that when the next episode is?
In 28 days.
We all go through life sometimes.